guys, good afternoon. Maybe little louder so that the cloud can hear us. Okay, so just before starting, I have one question to everyone, basically for the audience. So how many people have already got into the cloud? Yeah, how many have been transformed to cloud? Can I have the hands, please? Okay, so how many are transitioning into cloud? Anybody? Okay, the rest is thinking. So we'll get you guys there around. Okay, guys. So this discussion, what we mean is like the cloud transformation, adopting to cloud has started long time back, right? So one case is like there are some different steps like identifying, deciding, then transforming, running, and then even transitioning to another cloud. So it is more than that. It has becoming a part of our lives. So maybe I'll just start my first question with Ankush. Okay. So basically, what we have, every company, every organization will have a problem in deciding, which is a cost, right? So what do you see that what are the tips we should take for deciding based on a cost factor? Moving into a cloud is a better choice, and are we going to run it? Are we going to stay there? And there are a lot of opportunities you will get to move to cloud as well. So what are your thoughts on it?
So as far as our thought is concerned, or what experience I've seen in the industry, is that the best way for cloud adoption is to be neutral about the cloud. We should not romanticize about ourselves from a particular cloud technology, because certain services are cost optimal and efficient in one particular cloud deployment model, and certain are better to be deployed in another fashion. And there's no one way of implementing the same, right? We use multiple financial tools. We all use multiple credit cards. We all use multiple modes of transportation. So cloud, like it is, it's an infrastructure as a service, right? So you need to understand where your storage cost will be higher, where your licensing cost will be lower, and accordingly working with multiple customers in various industries, we design based on the outcome rather than based on a particular technology. That's what we do.
Okay, that is a great insight. So we'll come back on that on a follow-up later. So the other thing is like, let us say cost is ready. Now, then what about the migration strategy? This is actually to Ishaan. So the point is we are talking about migration strategies. Let us say we will have multiple migration strategies. So what is your strategy on? There is another thing which comes is like a security and compliance comes in. So what is your aspects and thoughts about that?
Okay, so I'll take both on the strategy side and the security side. So my thinking was, I'm a very data-driven person. Okay, so how I would strategize on this, or I would recommend, is there would be multiple flows that are going on in a company around a product. For example, in an automotive company, for a dealership, they are basically maintaining the database of their customers, right? Now we can do a check that how many people are being involved in maintaining that, in doing that bookkeeping. What would be the cost around that, the expenses around that, and then probably hire a consultant and check that if we are shifting and automating that particular end-to-end flow to cloud, what would be the cost, right? That can be used to basically assess whether the migration is required or not. And of course, to start with, we shouldn't work on the critical aspects initially. We should probably first transform those use cases to cloud, which won't break the system, but would simplify the life of the existing employees.
I will just little bit complicate this further. So how do you take care of the legacy data? Because every company comes with a legacy, and earlier stages we will be accumulating a lot of legacy. Then we think about a migration, and that's strategy we form, right? So most of this legacy, what happens is we only know about it. Once the moment you put on the cloud, actually the problem starts, right? So how do you take care of
So again, that depends on the criticality of the flow. So we do not do 100% migration from day one. We will first migrate the non-critical flows. We will just check. There would be an overlap for sure. And once we have migrated, we have to do a check again and again till we are sure that all the legacy systems have been migrated and people are accustomed to the new systems that have been adopted.
Okay, so that was the way of getting into cloud and migration and even bringing the legacy systems data, right? So the next one is Sandesh. So okay, so now we are talking about a cloud transformation and a culture. So the culture is something like, I would say that, okay, we have been graduating in something and suddenly we go to United States of America, we change the culture, right? So similarly, we have been very happy with our four walls and there is a server running and suddenly it is in the public cloud. So we are confused and a lot of people, even Indian government was confused. I don't want to say confused, they don't want to do it, right? So maybe you guys will agree with me. Like many people would have faced this problem of saying that, okay, you are on cloud, no, then we cannot give you my stuff. So what are your thoughts of nurturing that cloud nature or cloud culture? So can you elaborate?
Yeah, sure. I think in my career I've worked on-prem cloud technology systems both, right? So of course cloud is another technology. It comes with bunch of advantages. Also it comes with its own caveats that all of us should be careful of. So the culture in the organization will swiftly change to not thinking of leveraging infrastructure efficiently, not planning ahead for the capacity expectation. So it will change for the good, that our value of any feature, value of anything to market is shorter, but then at the same time your overall infra spend is also going to go up. So I think the cultural change of speed to market is an advantage, but that comes with the good habits of non-cloud was capacity planning, thinking through hardware's resources efficiently, planning through it. The good hygiene of that still has to be continued. Whereas you get the time to value, but continue your hygiene of the good practices of old days.
So just a follow up on that. So when we bring up that culture, so let us say, what would be your suggestion that should we get ready for that and bring that cloud perspective? See, because many startups start with the cloud, but I am talking about an exercise for the people who are actually thinking of. So should we bring up that culture and say that, okay, are we ready to go get into the cloud, so that are we publicly ready?
No, I think the readiness is culture is an important aspect, but there are multiple other aspects, right? As a business, are you ready to, how compliant, how regulated you are? There are different aspects of readiness, but purely coming to culture, it's never going to be 0 to 1, or there will never be a state of you are always ready and we will go and adopt any technology. Cloud is one example. I think that transition and transformation has to be organic. Of course, now I think a lot of people said most of the companies have either been born in cloud, completely transformed into cloud. So the fear or lack of transparency or lack of training is gone. So I think there are enough ecosystem available to train the culture, right? Train your employees in that culture and take the transition.
Okay, so that will be a good approach to actually get into the cloud, because we should be ready so before we hit the cloud, right? So once it is gone to the cloud, we can't see it, we should be in control. Yeah, absolutely, I agree with that points. So this is for Sudheer. Okay, so this it's like an important point which comes in, like a data sovereignty. So the point here is like there are I have a little problem in getting this question because a lot of experts are here. So all are experts in their field and multiple experts for the same and similar. So anyway, I will just try to be faster and I want to get more insights. So what are your insights on this topic of data sovereignty?
So we are in fintech, Jupiter Money. So I almost spent 2 years conducting multiple audits with RBI directly and indirectly. So the main thing comes down to the security of the data at rest and in transit, which most of us would have implemented with proper protocols and encryption of the data, mainly the PII data. We also adopted new technologies mainly to scan the data. We periodically scan the data across our services, looking for the PII data that is like not visible to the, maybe in our regular audits we may not be able to figure out, because we know, okay, this is the database where we collect the customer info, but it is possible it's there in your logs, it's there in your cloud through observability. We use many tools, right, as any other company. So we do periodic scans of all our services. At the same time, we do monitor like the encryptions that is done properly or not. Is it like if you take the data backup, can you decrypt the data and get all the customer info? We follow stringent rules, and at the same time, again, just to add, right, in terms of the security on the cloud also, RBI wants to make sure the data is in India region. So whenever we tie up with a partner for any service or integration, we also enforce the contract to have their data centers deployed in Mumbai or Hyderabad region typically. So most of our services are in Mumbai and in Hyderabad region. There may be exceptions where you may have to push the data for observability beyond India. There we make sure the PA data is not sent from our infra outside by masking and few strategies that we apply. So we do make sure the data sovereignty is there and consistency. At the same time, we also do frequent drills between the regions like Mumbai, Hyderabad, so that if things go bad, the data is not lost in terms of the customer info, the transaction info. We are compliant, fully compliant with the guidelines from RBI. It is tough to maintain it on a periodic basis, but we should try to enforce whenever you build a new service or any vendor integration. We try to evaluate all this, and before making the service or the feature live, we make sure the data is not compromised. At the same time, the security is taken care.
Right. So I think you put in a hidden point there called data residency also. So in this context, how you are managing? Like, what is your aspect of managing this data residency? Because like every company does that, but the problem is like there are built-in rules. Like India government has got it, and UAE if you go, you can't take or you cannot add or take anything. So those aspects, how do you? What is your aspect?
Fortunately, so far, there will be some tools where you cannot enforce them, that you need to have all the data centers in India. Maybe I cannot quote the company names, but yeah, most of the tools are built globally, and as a startup, we also need to integrate with them. But we at least make sure they also purge the data in case there is a need that this data temporarily flows to other environment beyond India, or even we want to make sure the customer data that is flowing into any other vendor is purged periodically, and we conduct reviews on their environment, have it in a strict legal contract before finalizing with them.
Okay, I think that's a nice strategy to have both going in together. So Ankush, it is for you. So anyway, one question to all again. How many people are heard of AI? AI? Again, I am repeating AI. Everyone would have heard. I am just thinking that the lunge is kicking in. But the AI is a big thing which is happening in our lives, and without AI, nothing is complete. That is what I have seen in the recent past, as well as almost last 6 months. Wherever I go, first thing, any AI initiative is the first question. So Ankush, to you, so what do you think this AI part of data means cloud transformation and monitoring and whatever aspects we get into the cloud?
So before answering that, from an enterprise standpoint, how many of you actually use ChatGPT or any other AI platform for your day-to-day work? Anyone is using? So let me give you an example. How my life has changed. Post this AI thing. I lead pre-sales and solutioning, and I need to do a lot of work on a day-to-day basis. Let me tell you, all my relevant tasks, my travel requisition, my claims, my all my basic things. In fact, a lot of my emails I respond through AI, and that's how I keep up to date, right? So the way I've seen that this technology has dual ends, and that's why I'm connecting back to the enterprise level. Any response which is L1 and you need to give it fast, AI works very well. Even from our data center standpoint, like ticket categorization, any noise you want to filter it out. You set parameters, it will do it. So we are able to cut down the load on our employees on our day-to-day tasks by leveraging AI. And the way I see it, it's bound to grow. It's not going to be the way it is depicted in Hollywood movies that the world is going to be taken over by robots or artificial intelligence. That's pretty far, and there's an economic reason for not happening, because you don't have too many chips to actually have that much amount of automation, right? That's a essential area which will limit AI rather than the technology itself. But having said that, as a service provider, so for example, all these folks, if you see, people are from RBI compliances. I tell you, if you do an automated response for an RBI compliance document by fetching data, multiple data points, your 3 days of audit work can actually get reduced to just half an hour of primary report, which can actually be reviewed by an L3 or a L4 rather than an L4 guy is filling it manually. Because you can actually merge multiple documents, for an audit response, and so that's what I see today. Every one of us is, having issues of, having over information. So what AI helps is consolidating that information to you, give you a dashboard so that you can focus on not on the noise but on the actual work. That's what I see AI will do, and that's what is happening in our data center and our managed services also. Our teams are only able to focus on priorities rather than on each and every ticket. That's how we are leveraging artificial intelligence from an automation and segmentation standpoint.
Yeah, so you touched upon many relevant points there. So in the monitoring is something I think it is almost like done, right, on AI. So do you want to little bit elaborate on that monitoring, what all things can be done? Because many places when I go, people are still thinking that we can do use AI for monitoring, but still people are a little confused. Okay, if I use AI, what would be the results and how it to go on? So maybe there will be a little more insights on that.
So for example, in our data centers, we manage almost 10,000 plus servers, virtual machine, etc. If we start, managing it on a manual basis, it will be a tedious task for us. So essentially, automating the monitoring process, what it does is that, number one, it catches all the tickets, and then you are categorizing it at using automation. So for example, if there is a cybersecurity alert, because today you have a lot of specialization within the teams, I can categorize the ticket based on the parser that this is a storage level ticket, so it will go to the storage team. If it's a server level ticket, it will go to the server team. Earlier, what used to happen 5 years back, we used to call a operator on a help desk, then he used to categorize. So even if you today call most of the advanced level of call centers, it will ask you 1, 2, 3, 4, it will categorize and put you in the right category. That's how the monitoring also happens at an enterprise level. If it's a cybersecurity issue, it will go into the SOC bucket. If it's a storage issue, it will go to a storage bucket. If it's a server issue, if it's a virtualization issue, so and so forth. And you have people with multiple specialities within that team itself. Even in cybersecurity, someone would be an expert on SIEM, someone would be an expert on data access and privileges. So the best part that AI does is that it categorizes the tickets. Then the objective of the L3 or L4 is only to identify the false positive, because you can very easily set parameters and it learns. Most of the AI systems, the way you work, it learns over the period of time. So you train the model, you make the model learn. You can have your own customized scripts that's on Python or JSON or even on Ansible, and that's how the system works. So we see, as far as our managed services business is concerned, because we manage multiple customers, we'll have the future is for people who understand Python. I think that's one bottom line I can tell, that this is one language which should be taught to even kids at the school level, because if you want to actually leverage AI, you need to understand scripting. So that's what is the mandate within our own organization also. Everyone who is part of the managed services business are making themselves hands-on into scripting and coding, so that we can leverage these equipments. So whether it's Cisco, whether it's Zscaler or X technology or Y technology, if you can work at the API level using scripts, I think then you can deploy them very fast and very quickly.
Yeah, that is very true, because I think most of the schools are actually teaching Python, and I can see that my son is having a Python project in +2. Even 7th to 8th standard also it is introduced. I think that's right, because see, we are getting into an age and era where we have to use technology, and we are using technology. Better teach our children so that they can understand before they hit the ground. Okay, that's great conversation. So it is for Navneet, right? So Navneet was looking for a very tough question, so I have found one, right?
I asked him not to ask a tough question to me specifically.
Okay, so this is completely regarding customer experience, right? So why I'm telling this is a tough question, because every business is looking for customers, and we can do whatever we want. The customer is not asking, are you on cloud? Are you not on cloud? What are you doing in office? Are you giving tea and you are having outing in office? Nobody asks that. They want the service perfectly. So when you are transforming to cloud, what is going to be their customer experience? How can we ensure that? What can we do for it? What are your thoughts?
See, this is a very, very elaborate question. I mean, I can be...
That's why I told it is tough.
See, what happens is, to bring things into perspective, I'll just tell you what exactly do we do. I mean, we at Card 91 power a lot of issuance of cards for banks. So in effect, we work for banks, and we are a B2B company. We use on-prem setups, we also use hybrid models, we also use cloud. So all the three. And what we have seen is, whenever we have to kind of talk about customer experience, because we are B2B, we are only concerned about that how do we service the banks whom we are targeting as of now. So for example, if we are powering some prepaid cards for a certain bank, how do we ensure that there is always availability? Because ultimately the bank's customer is whom we are serving through the bank. So now if you have a card, a prepaid card or a credit card or a Forex card, it might happen that it is all running through our servers. You will never know. You will always know that if it's a Yes Bank or a ICICI or an IDBI or whatever bank, you will always be a bank's customer. So ultimately the responsibility of ensuring that the customer is able to do transactions 24/7 in whatever way possible lies with us. So that is what we kind of take it very seriously, and we always ensure that we kind of do all kinds of migration which are needed, be it cloud or keep things in the data center, whatever is needed, to ensure that there is high availability, it is secure. So one fine day it should not happen that you want to do a transaction and your transactions are not going through, because ultimately then you start calling the bank's L1 gets jammed, even though they do autos tagging of tickets, as Ankush pointed out, but we want to keep those calls low. So that's why we put all sorts of checks and balances in place in the cloud to ensure that everything is working fine, and we have our SOC center to ensure that any alerts which kind of get raised because of security and whatsoever are handled. So customer service is paramount even for a B2B company, because we take the B2C journey also very seriously for whomsoever we are serving.
Yeah, I think maybe you are reserving some more words. We will come back to that, because customer service is like the key. Because without customer, I don't think any organization has survived. If you can name some, I don't think so, right?
No, you're right actually. In fact, when I talked about the end customer, it is B2C. But when I talk about B2B, or because banks is our customer directly, and when RBI comes knocking on their door for audits, they come to us, and we have to ensure that we provide the adequate reports. Maybe 300-page documents. We have got audited regularly by banks. which are in our offices for around 7 days, 8 days, and they go through our security posture, they go through our cloud strategy, everything, processes, procedures, documents, and whatnot. And we have been sustaining that for the last 4 years, and always our security posture when it comes to cloud is awesome, and that's what we have kind of got a pat on our back from most of our banking partners.
Absolutely. So we will come back to you again. After a short break. So the couple of questions I just want to elaborate with the multiple leaders here, because the more views are always better. So Sandesh, it is starting with you on this question. So it is basically, okay, it is very good. We have thought about the cost, we have got the idea what we are going to do, we decided which is the partner, we actually moved to a cloud platform. Now what? We need to run it, right? What do we need? We need workforce. So is it a problem, or is it something which we are almost getting into a state where, okay, it is like the resources are available, people are available, and workforce is not a problem, or how do you actually bring the workforce in, right?
Yeah, I think that is slowly getting solved, the purely workforce challenge, because as I was chatting with few leaders here, a lot of the companies which are born in last 6 to 10 years are all cloud native, right? They're all born with cloud. Or in the clouds, they don't know how to run operations on-prem, and thanks to all the zero interest rate time, a lot of the companies were run and they got trained on cloud and cloud technologies, right? So that's one. Second, even the large cloud players have enough documentation, training, certifications, both free and paid, to upskill people who had worked on earlier setup. And then third, even the universities are adopting a good modern technology curriculum and embracing it. So I think those three put together, the workforce problem is largely taken care of.
Yeah, that is a great way to do. So Ankush, you want to give here, because I think have you ever got a situation like a customer got into you and said that, okay, sorry, help me, right? Because I don't have the workforce to maintain it.
No, so actually it happens multiple times. In fact, as one of my key areas is to hire people and train them, because today the problem statement is that it's very difficult to get people as per the expectation, because the expectations are also changing at a very, very dynamic level. So the two areas which we have suggested to customers by and large is that, see, they can't have all the talent that is required to run the operations today. It's a cloud neutral world, so you can't have workforce who is certified on AWS, as well on Azure, as well as on GCP, like we talked about cloud migration. Certain companies don't do this because they don't have trained manpower on a particular technology. Now it's like chicken and egg situation. Will you wait for someone to be hired for almost 4 months, and after even hiring after 4 months, even to harness his expertise, whether the resource is actually good or not, or he's only having a good CV, you'll only come to know after 6 months, right? So rather than waiting for kickstarting a project for 6 months, because right now your need is right now, so it's always better to, like, you subscribe cloud services at a scale, you scale up, scale down, you outsource your managed services to a managed service provider, so that you can get the project executed as then when it comes, and you scale down as and when it goes. Because it's bad to even tell people that at a good times you are hiring a lot of guys, and bad times you're asking them to go, because that's not the way any normal enterprise can operate. But if it's an MSP or a managed service provider, because he has a volume of work, he will be able to deliver. Second aspect is that today people don't simply just work for money or the dollars that you're going to pay them, unless you will have a quantum of work available for them. So let's say you are hiring a Kubernetes expert or a security expert. Someone like maybe Jupiter can justify his job. That as a SOC expert, yes, it's a full-time job, but let's say someone is in manufacturing. SOC is essential, but it's a sideline, service for them. So you will not have enough work for that talent so that he can improve upon his skills. So even if you will hire a very good resource, if you don't have a good amount of work for him on a continuous basis, you will not be able to retain him. So the best way to have is, hire people who are multi-talented, multitasking, and you will outsource that work to the experts. Like you're outsourcing your IAS to cloud service provider because they are in a better position to host you. It's better to ask a professional service provider. I'm not saying you only go to a company like us, which is CtrlS. You can, today the market is very mature. You should go to people like Infosys, Accenture, or Wipro or CtrlS of the world, and leverage their professional services for managed services, etc. That's what my thing is.
Yeah, absolutely. So the point is taken. The workforce what we have, actually, do we have it in-house? Should we contract them? As rightly mentioned, yeah, this is a very common thing what you mentioned in the IT industry. Is like, okay, let us start up and we get some 40 people. After that we are saying, sorry, we don't have any work. So that is not the real culture. We should change that, and ideally, but people are very excited when they get the funds and they hire people. Right? So, but that should change. But the cloud platform is actually playing a very good role in controlling costs. So my next question, Sudheer, for you, it is like cost optimization is something which everyone is talking about in cloud. But I had a very bad experience, not me. Before I joined the current company Blubirch, who is doing return inventory management system. So what happened is like there is an AI engine was invoked, and in a night, one night, 14 lakhs just went on, not even a night, 4 hours, right? So such things can also happen because you have to be very careful in using cloud, because cloud is very easy to take and anybody can take, and no issue, like security required and very minimal guarantee. You invoke, but what you invoke, you are responsible. You just pay, right? So what are your thoughts on it?
Sure, I think good question. Right now we are mostly focused on cost optimization on one of the major cloud providers we deploy our services. So why the cost is a problem? Because again, with cloud comes the comfort of spinning up a lot of instances, scaling your databases. We have 4x large databases for a very simple API queries we run. So the developers in general, again, they don't look at the cost angle. It's not wrong because they are focusing on velocity, getting their service up in a short time. But it costs over the time. Maybe as a startup, it's easy to start with the cloud. Maybe after 1-2 years, when we made significant customer base, the cloud costs kind of eat up into your revenue. That's where most of the growing startups are right now. And how we are trying to tackle that problem is enforcing few checks at the same time. Maybe I'll talk about few practices. One is infrastructure as a code. So whichever cloud provider, if you enforce some kind of, again, code kind of like Terraform if you use, and control through some reviews, you can only provision the infra only through certain reviews. That is one way you can maybe have a safety net without accidentally like spinning up any service or database, right? At the same time, we do weekly review with our leadership how we are trying to keep it under control. Mainly the cost of the cloud provider I am talking about, it's very high. So few things we look at is the service utilization for CPU memory, because most of the times we just throw 8 CPUs, but maybe the API requires only 1 or 2 CPUs to run that traffic or the query, right, DB query. So this is what we are trying to constantly optimize the code and the queries we are running from the developer standpoint. At the same time, from the DevOps angle or the like infra engineers angle, they are also trying to see the alternate technologies that can save cost. Maybe don't go with the traditional databases, see the right technology that can do the job. Like again, don't throw a lot of storage, have proper archival strategy, because data also costs. Over the years, the data piles up, terabytes of data, you need to pay for the data transfer, storage, everything. So we go in every angle, whichever is the top 3 costs that we have, and try to optimize or see any solutions that can mitigate the cost.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you are trying, or you are actually resonating what Ankush said, that don't blindly get into it, at least have some idea what you are doing so that you will not get surprised, right? Okay. Yeah, Ishaan, this is for you. It is so. It is like we are talking about. There are multiple cloud. We are the cloud infrastructure. We are talking about private, public. So my question is on the public cloud infrastructure, which is actually like the the most liked by everybody because nothing required to get started, and some issues or something which can happen and what is required here. But what is that your opinion and tips for getting scalability and security, and it is just like a mix of how you can think of bringing up a good cloud infrastructure and be with it, and also as Sudheer mentioned, when we want to grow, let us grow, and when the more transaction comes, let us scale. So basically scalability or security, all aspects. So just a gist of it, so that we can cover, like we have actually taken decision to on a cost, then we actually migrated, then now we are running, now we are into public cloud, and we will not get beaten, we will be sustainable.
So these things have evolved a lot in the past century, in the past decade. There are so many providers providing top-notch services, be it AWS, GCP, these guys, very price competitive. So it's not really that hard a decision to get into using these public infrastructure to host your services, first of all. Now, getting into the managed service part, it completely depends on what kind of flexibility you are looking out for. How complex is the system that you are building that needs to be deployed. If it's not very complex and it needs to be scaled very fast, probably you should opt for managed services, because then your life becomes very simple. And also, if you don't have the right resources in your team to take care of certain things, for example, Kubernetes, if you don't have people who have that much in-depth knowledge of Kubernetes, you can easily opt for a managed service around Kubernetes, right? And if you don't want that much flexibility around managing data, then you can totally opt for managed services. It's only when the system gets more and more complicated, then you should hire a person who is a top-notch master of Kubernetes, and you should get onto managing services yourself. So yeah, that's what I would say on the managed service.
Yeah, it's a wonderful way of collating everything. So the discussion we were having here is like, what is cloud, how to get into it, if you are getting in, what is required, and once we are in, and how to sustain, then how to scale, and based on the business, how it is running, how we can actually move it across. And also the interesting aspects which I came in, I think most of the people are resonating in a different way, that we need to have a plan for it. So that is the first thing we should have. Second part is like, once we plan, then cost is anyway we have discussed. Without cost, plan will be thrown out, right? So then, and also don't be very energetic. Think little bit, think too much on it before getting in, because once you get in, be there and try to be running with the mode. And also there is another interesting aspect. I think it is Ankush. I just want to have, we have a little more time left, so I just want to use that time because it is going very interesting. So when you want to migrate, right? So for example, what happens is like, I don't want to use that word, but it's an escape route. Once you get into one cloud platform, some people got into some of the specific services and they were unable to move out. So what is your recommendation, so that it is an independent cloud, is just like a placeholder, and we host it, and if you want, it is our will, right? So what are your recommendation on it?
So like I said, don't romanticize with one product or a service. Keep yourself neutral. And when I say keep yourself neutral, is that never opt for a proprietary service which is only available in that particular cloud provider. So for example, if you're on Kubernetes, you can move Kubernetes from VMware to GCP to AWS to Azure, because it's an open technology. If you're using a firewall, it's a firewall, right? I don't want to name a particular brand, but if you will use a branded firewall service from a particular cloud provider, then you will not be able to move it. And if you have a lot of stickiness to APIs, so there are a lot of PaaS services unless you're pretty sure that your contracts are very, very sticky and you have very good price, don't start using PaaS services on public clouds, because that's a pitfall which people fall into. You can migrate everything under the sun, but you can't migrate PaaS services, because, and I don't want to name customers here. They've been, so there are 3 problems that people face in public clouds, and I think which we can say. I'll give an example of a very big insurance company. Definitely I can't name it because I don't want to take the end customer name here. They started small and they never documented what they are consuming. So what happens that in IT teams, if you give access to everyone, anyone can do a self-service provisioning. So if it is without a tagging, if it is without a resource demarc in a public cloud, you will end up having 400 or 200 virtual machines where people don't have clarity that which one they will shut down, will have what impact where. So like you have accountability for a budget, you should have accountability within the IT team itself, that if you are provisioning, let's say it's a security team, so whatever you are provisioning, what is the budget for that? So till the time you will not have a budget approval process or a governance around it, cloud will actually, you will end up spending a lot of money. That's point number 1. Second thing is that it's very easy for developers to use PaaS services, because for them 10 days work is like a minute. You want to deploy something, you take it as a PaaS and you can deploy it immediately. But the problem statement is that PaaS you cannot migrate. Anything in an IaaS or in a cloud neutral framework, you can migrate from X place to Y place. But PaaS services you will not be able to migrate. These are the only 2 points. Third, storage. If you are having just 1 terabyte or 2 terabytes of data, you can always migrate. But if you're growing where you have 50 terabytes or 100 terabytes or 500 terabytes or even growing at a level of petabyte, I think you are ending up into an area, because in any cloud provider, taking data out is chargeable and data in is free, right? So it becomes a one-way trap. As long as you are small, it's fine. But the moment you will cross 50 terabytes, you cannot come out, because you will not be able to have that kind of a disruption. So have your eggs in all the baskets, distribute your workload, and don't romanticize with one vendor. Have relationship with everyone in the market.
Yeah, so what you're suggesting is like the world is all yours, don't romanticize with one. Okay, so the statement is very valid. So with this one statement, this is an important statement, because everyone who is thinking that why I should get into a cloud, you don't need to worry, you are not trapped, you need to have a plan, get into it, then after that if you want to exit, you have an exit strategy. So thank you guys, I think it was a wonderful discussion.